everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I was looking for another kind of quicker and easier project to ease myself back into sewing after both costume college and then a work trip, and on top of it I've started rehearsals for another show this week. And then beyond that, this project was actually also inspired by the fact that American Girl just released a new Playline Rapunzel doll, which I really love and may get in the future. However, two issues. One, I literally just bought a long blonde haired doll last month at the American Girl store when I was down there for costume college, and it just seems silly to buy another long blonde haired doll like right away. And also, I'm honestly not happy with the dress on the Playline doll. This is the dress right here. This is not Rapunzel's dress. I don't know why all these like kids costumes and this and stuff keep putting this weird peplum on Rapunzel's dress, but she doesn't have a peplum. And I am kind of a stickler about Rapunzel because not only is Rapunzel my favorite princess and Tangled my favorite princess movie, but also I have made more Rapunzel costumes than like any other princess costume. I have made at this point, I think, 2 commissions for Rapunzel doing like an exact reproduction of the costume. One that I hand painted before I got an embroidery machine, and one that I digitized embroidery for, which is actually available in my Etsy store, which I'll link down below if you are interested in human size embroidery for Rapunzel's outfit. And then I made myself one that was also like an exact cosplay. And then I wasn't really happy with how that looked on me, so I made myself my Rapunzel Dapper Dirndl bound, which is a Dapper Day version that is kind of based on a dirndl style dress. And I've also done like Rapunzel bounds for the Ren Fair and just in general and stuff. So anyway, I really love the Rapunzel dress, and the Disney collector doll version that they released last year was $300 initially and now goes for like $400 to $500. That one looks great. I'm never gonna spend that much on a doll. In my opinion, that is just like absolutely insane to spend on a doll. Totally great for all of you who can afford that sort of thing. That is not me. So what we are doing this week is we are going to make a Rapunzel dress that is hopefully a really close copy to the original. So I was looking around the internet because I, again, want this to be an easy project, so I wanted this to have a pattern that already exists as opposed to me patterning this. And I found this pattern right here on Pixie Fair. This is a Fashioned by Rebecca pattern, which seems awfully appropriate even though it was not me that did the fashioning, but now Lady Rebecca Fashions is making Fashioned by Rebecca. And I think that this dress is going to look super cute on my 125, who I have named Chloe. And yeah, she'll just be my stand-in Rapunzel because she's basically got the hair for it anyway. So I have a few fabrics that I'm going to be using for this project, and they are all leftover from other projects, most of which were Rapunzel to begin with. This is my Rapunzel fabric that is like the basic outer skirt and such. This one right here, I believe, is the bodice, but I'll have to double check. I think this is the bodice, and this is like the 4-part area. I dyed both of these. These were actually just like a white poly brocade, and I dyed them each these sort of like deeper pink and then like the lavender. And then I do also have this, which was left over from the Dapper Dirndl bound, and I think that this is a really cute just cotton fabric in the right colors. So we'll see. I may utilize this, I may just go for these. And then I also have to decide how I'm going to embellish this dress, because I would love to do the embroidery, but I digitized this embroidery not using like regular software. I actually used the drawing pad from my brother Quattro, and I don't know if there's a way for me to then put this into software and shrink this down to like a 1/3 size or whatever scale American Girl dolls are. I think it may just be too dense and not be able to do that, which in that case means that I may make this a longer project in the long run, but probably not for this week, and I may hand paint the motifs. Or I may decide that I have some other trim in my trim stash that I could use to kind of give that motif instead. But I really love all of the like embroidered look of Rapunzel's costume. I think it was the first Disney princess to get any of that look, and I think it'd be really cool to either incorporate that as embroidery or as the hand painting like I did on the first version of Rapunzel that I made, just because Rapunzel deserves it. She needs that little bit of extra touch because she is bored locked up in her tower. So anyway, let's go ahead to cut out this pattern and cut out the fabric pieces, and we will start putting this whole thing together. I've decided that I am making a little bit of a pattern change here. For one thing, there's two lengths to this pattern. There's the view B length and then there's the A length. I am making view B, but view B just felt a little too short. Also, what's weird is I feel like in the pattern images online, they have that switched, so that threw me off a bit. But I wanted it to be a little bit longer, so I'm just extending that a tiny bit. And I'm also making the back go out like this so that I get a little bit of room for gathering in the waist. I'm hoping this is the back. It doesn't say back versus front, but because of this dot, I'm guessing it's sewn up to here and then it's open. So anyway, I want a little bit of gathering because her skirt does have gathering. I just want a little bit less of that super A-line that this skirt has. So yeah, just swinging it out a little bit and cutting that mid-length, and that is my change for the skirt. So because I was having a hard time focusing on cutting out the pieces earlier, I've decided to test embroidery. So I took the embroidery that I digitized ages ago, which was my scale, and I shrunk it down in my software so that the entire front of the skirt fits in one 8-inch hoop. And I am now trying to test it because I have no idea if the density shrunk while I was doing that or not. Like, this might be the most dense embroidery ever, or it might have worked. And I'm doing a little test out to see what the answer to that is. So I will come back to you in about 30 minutes or so when this is meant to be finished. But that is the very start of it right there. It looks really dense, guys. Actually, I lied. I stopped the machine because this is so dense. So clearly I did something wrong in shrinking it down. I think I'll try one other test because there was like one other shrink option I could do to shrink it down, and I will see if that's any better. Hopefully like on this kind of same tester piece now, which, you know, was supposed to be the skirt, but now it's a tester. And yeah, because that is not going to work. So I just wanted to kind of show you what this looks like when you resize. Now granted, PE Design Next is super old software. This is literally from 10 years ago. But basically when you have a little piece of your design, because I took 4 designs and I combined them all into one, when you take a little piece of your design, you can go up to resize right here. And it pops up this little window. And what I wasn't sure about was this whole keep density and fill pattern thing, which comes automatically unchecked. Now, the first time I resized it, I checked that box. And what it did was it gave me a total stitch count of 19,596 stitches. That's in the entire design. So I went and I tried with the box unchecked to start resizing the same 4 patterns in the same thing. And it showed me like 80-something thousand stitches. So obviously I had done it the correct way in the first place, but it still just could not match the density getting it down that small. And that's how we wind up with something so dense as this, because this is really like, it's so just thick. It wouldn't be pleasant like to work with, to have on a relatively lightweight satin skirt, etc. I mean, I did such a tiny bit there, and it's meant to be all the way down here and then all the way around the hem. So I have 2 options. Option 1 is that there is actually a design that I could purchase on Etsy that is already doll sized, and I think was even kind of intended to go along with this pattern. I'll link that one down below in the description. And option 2 is that I have this trim. This would only work for the fronts and not around the hem, unfortunately, because I just don't have enough of this. But this trim is this beautiful beaded trim, and if I were to cut off the edges, it would kind of have like a paisley-ish look to it that wouldn't be absolutely dissimilar from her design. But I don't know, because I only have enough of it for the fronts and it would be beaded, and her dress really isn't beaded, I am debating about just spending $13 on this, you know, project that was supposed to be a super quick, super easy, stash-based type project that I think I might just go ahead and buy that embroidery and hope that it's good. I mean, it's by a very reputable embroidery maker, so hopefully that will work. Again, I'll link that down below, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go on Etsy and buy the downloads for that. While still on the same tester piece here, I have now purchased the embroidery design. I think it's from Art Embroidery. Again, it's linked down below. And I am just testing that out, literally again with the same one that I had started up here, but then starting hers with the second motif, just to kind of see, you know, quality of embroidery, which is honestly looks really good. I really like the satin stitch that it's doing. It doesn't seem so weird like mine. Now, the real thing about mine and why I can't really fix it like in post is because I actually originally digitized the human size of that on the drawing pad that came with this machine. So I literally like plugged it in, drew with the little pen. I am not left-handed, but I'm holding the camera with my right. Drew with the little pen on the drawing pad and it appeared on here as I did it, and that became the embroidery here. And honestly, it works great in human size. This is what it looks like in human size, and it has that sort of hand-drawn quality that I was actually going for with this embroidery, because if you look closely at her embroidery, it is not supposed to be all nice and neat. It actually does look pretty rough, and that works great in human scale, not so much in doll scale. So yeah, if you are interested in human size, this is available in my Etsy shop, which I will link in the description. And it goes all the way around the skirt with basically, you know, park accurate embroidery there. And yeah, but it just does not translate to doll size, unfortunately. What you might notice about this one is that there's a lot less color changes, like thread color changes, than there were with mine. Mine had 5 colors, this only has 3. And I do wonder if it's going to make things look very pink. She had actually originally had this as like a purple, light purple color, and this is pink, like that's what it shows up with when it first goes into your machine. But honestly, that's not correct because most of the little squirrely S's are pink. So yeah, I changed mine to pink, but I just feel like it might look like a lot of pink. So yeah, this embroidery is beautiful. I am probably going to do it slightly larger than this. The hoop that I had done before was an 8 by 10 or something like that. I don't know. It's not my largest hoop in any case. And the design really is meant to go into at least a 10-inch hoop, which I guess this is not because it won't let me embroider that big. But yeah, I can do up to 8 inches in this hoop. So maybe this is my 6 by 8. That would make more sense. This must be my 6 by 8. I must not have an 8 by 10. So the embroidery though is gorgeous. Like, look how nice and even and clear everything is. I think that it doesn't look too pink either. Again, I did the third one in the blue, which was originally what she had as pink. I think it looks really beautiful. I love the little like roses. Gosh, she is really good. I know she's a really like prolific embroidery designer, but yeah, this is beautiful. So I am going to cut out a new fresh skirt panel now and embroider for real. So I am actually going to change another small something from this pattern as well. And that is that I read through all of the pattern steps. I know, novel idea, right? I don't normally actually read through a pattern, but I did. I read ahead, I read all of them. Or at least I skimmed them, I should say. And what I noticed about this pattern is that you basically wind up with a bag-lined bodice so that you have no exposed seams. Now, that's all well and good, but that means having some really, really, really tiny areas to get around, like how to set the sleeves in and stuff like that. If you watched my recent video on the making of the 1916 doll dress, then you will know that something that I found kind of novel and cool about that pattern was the way that like the sleeves were incorporated, the seams were finished off, etc. And I really liked that method, and I'm actually going to apply that method to this pattern, which frankly is also somewhat more similar to how I make human garments, in that like I don't need there to be everything bag lined. In general, I don't like bag lining because that means that for like me sized stuff, I can't go in and alter that later if I did something wrong or if my size changes. I can't alter it. Now, obviously, the size of an American Girl doll doesn't change. They stay the same. But regardless, if I go to bag line it, I just wind up with really, really hard to get to things and things that will wind up having to be hand sewn instead of machine sewn. So we're not bag lining. We are treating this all as one, and that means that the first step really to like actually assembling this garment is to do the bodice fronts, which again I'm changing something very slightly, but only because I don't have the thing that I need, which is you need like size I don't know, 000, 000. You need like smaller than 1/8 inch eyelets, something like that. Or grommets. I don't have any eyelets or grommets that are that small. What I do have is a Viking sewing machine that is actually able to do machine sewn functional eyelets. Now, obviously, we don't necessarily need them to be super functional here. Like, we're not putting any strain on this. This is still getting closed up the back. But we still need something for the ribbons to go through in the front with the lacing, and so I'm going to do just the machine eyelets that my machine can do because I have a really small one, and hopefully that will wind up being the right size. But with how this pattern is telling us to do things first, it says to take the two bodice fronts, like the side front pieces, and also our center piece, this one right here, and to put them together like that. And later we would get to do the lining that goes on the back of this. However, again, I'm not going to be doing that. So I'm going to take the lining with it and put it there and put those all together. And the only reason that I'm putting this together before doing the eyelets is so that I have a little bit more of a something to hold on to as I turn this around in the machine. I feel like if I were to just use this, I'm going to like lose, you know, the grip on this because it's just so small. So I'm going to assemble these together, and then I think I'm going to go ahead and serge the edges right here, because since I'm not doing a bag lining, I will need to finish my edges in some way. So either zigzag on the machine or serging, etc. I'm just going to use a serger, and I'm going to serge those edges right there, and then I'm going to go in. I've already marked my eyelets. You can see that right here, and I'm going to go in with my awl and put them on my machine and turn everything around and make all of my tiny, tiny eyelets, and that is how this front is going to go together. Okay, actually, slight change, because it dawned on me that if I do that, I would have to finish off the top and the hem of the bodice in some way, because the bag lining is what would be doing that, the way that their instructions are written. So I'm going to slightly change what I'm doing. Basically, I'm not going to put the lining in yet. I am going to do sort of a bag lining, but what I'm not going to do is put the sleeve into the outer before doing the lining and before closing up the side seam, because that was how that other 1916 pattern had it, was like the sleeve is basically set in flat, and that was set in after the lining already was attached in, though that one I think was largely not bag lined if I remember correctly. But I can still do this even with the bag lining of like having my little bodice be its little flat self. Basically, it kind of looks like this shape right here. I know that that doesn't make any sense the way I just drew it, but then the sleeve will also be flat, and then it can all just be sewn in together once the lining has already been put in to finish off the neckline and hem. Pretty sure this is gonna work. So yeah, that's the path that I'm going with, and I'm gonna put this together now. The embroidery machine is stitching away behind me, but you can see this is what the bodice front looks like now. I did actually decide to go with decorative eyelets instead of the functional because they are a lot faster. They are not perfect. Like you can see there's a weirdness where they don't really connect. But again, these aren't needing to be functional. Like there's going to be basically decorative ribbon going across that. There's not going to be any strain put on that, anything like that. That's why there's no boning in here. So now these get attached together to the side fronts. I'm also going to be attaching the side backs to the backs, all while the embroidery machine continues stitching out on the skirts. The embroidery is looking so pretty. This is the second of the two front panels, and then I will still have to do around the hem. The whole first skirt motif is done being stitched out, and the second one is nearly done. I've just started the last section of the motif. I really had thought that these lines were meant to like place the pattern, but it didn't work to go around the curve, and the curve was something I did not change. I only changed the width up at the waist. So I'm not really sure why the baste is so big. To be honest, I would prefer it if the baste just went around the pattern. Like it makes sense on this first panel for the baste to be so big, but if they're not meant to be laid right on top of each other, it doesn't make sense for the others to, because I could have done this in less hoopings, like less of the stabilizer, etc. But yeah, we're on the last motif now. It looks really good, but now I have to take out all of these basting stitches, which is kind of annoying. I'm again changing around some of the steps right here. For one thing, I actually did a lot less of the ribbons on the sleeves than the pattern said to do. You can see just how closely they were spaced on the pattern, and I just thought that that looked way too congested, and like mine doesn't actually have that many ribbons on it. I don't know if mine only has 5, but it's probably only 5, 6, maybe 7, and that's on a human size sleeve. So I decided to go with the 5 here, and I spaced them 1 inch apart. This is just velvet ribbon that I had in my stash because it was the only 1/4 inch wide ribbon that I had, pink ribbon. So yeah, that's what I'm using, and of course velvet hides the stitches pretty nicely. So I've put that on, and then I went and I serged around the edges, which finished off both the sleeve and the velvet ribbon. And part of that is because of the different way that I'm going to attach this in. I needed to make sure that that was serged off. So now these are going to get gathered both top and bottom. And then view B is not meant to have the sleeve band under here. However, Rapunzel's dress has that. So I'm going to add the sleeve band pattern piece there and then put the lower sleeve below that. So these are the sleeve band pieces there, and I probably will serge the tops and stuff before attaching those in, by the way, again, just so that that can be finished off. And then the lower sleeve is mesh. This is literally the exact same one that I used for all of the Rapunzel costumes I've made already. It's a very light pink mesh, and then that will get attached down below that sleeve band. I wish I kind of had like something small that I could decorate this with, because hers does have a little bit of something there. You can see on the one that I made for myself and possibly both of the cosplays, I used kind of a decorative ribbon, but I don't really have anything good, I feel like, to put on mine. So I think I'm probably just going to go with that plain purple band. You know, I said that, and then it dawned on me, this is like literally the exact same width. Granted, this would wind up having the seam allowance taken out of it, but maybe I'll just use this, or else maybe I will put this on top of the purple. I feel like that could be really pretty. Oh yeah, look at that. That is really pretty. Okay, I think I'm gonna do that. Look at that, perfect width. I'm gonna put that on top of the band and use that for the band. So the 1/4 inch on either side will go away from seam allowance, but I think that'll be a really nice touch and harken back to mine. So I realized that with the sleeve band that they had, that was supposed to be like folded in under itself. So it was way too wide, and it didn't make sense scale wise either. Scale wise, really the sleeve band would actually be only 3/4 inch wide, and then a 1/2 inch of that would go away for seam allowance, and it would be a 1/4 inch wide. So I basically sliced one of them in half. I haven't decided if I'm going to put trim over it or if I'm going to just do ribbon maybe or something. So we're going to put the sleeve band aside for a moment and work on the bodice over here instead. So here's where I'm differentiating from the pattern again, because this is what I was talking to you about earlier, where I was kind of drawing out that weird shape. This is the way that that 1916 pattern goes together, is basically when you're ready to add the lining, you're going to put right sides together here, and you're going to go along the whole bottom, back, neckline, and again back and bottom, and then the bottom over here as well, basically leaving the arm's eye and side seams to be where you turn that so that it's again right sides out. And then once that's right sides out, we're going to serge along this edge and put the sleeves in flat. So I know it doesn't quite make sense here because obviously we're missing half the sleeve, but basically the sleeve would wind up getting attached in like that. The rest of the sleeve would be here. And then we would sew up that underarm and sleeve seam all in one go. So before I add the sleeves and join everything together, I am using the opportunity while it's flat to put the lace around the neckline. I'm just going to top stitch this. So basically edge stitching the edge while adding the lace all in one go, because that'll help everything lay nice and flat now that it has been turned right side out, and it will add the lace and we'll only get one little stitch line. I am going to wait to add the lace around the bottom until that is closed though, because that's easy to add. And actually I'm going to go with this ribbon, which I don't feel like it's showing up on camera, but this is actually light pink, and the lace that's around her waist is light pink. So I'm going to use this because I don't have any really narrow light pink lace, and the scallops on like what I do have, they're just way too big for something of this scale. This is what the sleeves look like now that they are ready to set into the bodice. So let me just kind of go over the different elements here. I did talk about the band earlier. I actually wound up using this lace instead of this trim right here. This lace is light pink. I know it doesn't really quite look like it here because it's definitely a lighter pink than like here or here, but it is light pink, and it's done over that 3/4 inch wide purple band right there. So from the inside, that looks like that all seamed together, kind of bulky, but you know, again, it's a doll, doesn't matter. I do kind of wish that I'd spread out the gathers more. I only ran my gathering stitches from here to here. That's what I normally do on like a human's puffed sleeve, but I think that I should have gone further out, which is what the pattern says. I think it says to do it like all the way across, but you know, I've been ignoring a lot of this pattern. I put lace on here at the bottom. First I did right sides together with the lace, and then I top stitched it just so that it would stick downwards, or for the most part it's kind of trying to curl up on the sides a little bit. I think that will be better once I've done the seam. So yeah, that's what the sleeves look like. I have been debating about doing a stitch to keep this up here. I don't know if I'm going to, because it's not far enough that I can just like stitch in the ditch over here. So I would have to run a stitch, if I'm doing this by machine, I'd have to run it like through the middle of this band, and that would look not very good, I feel like. But I don't know, I might do it anyway, or I might take 3 seconds to just hand sew that before I set them in. And then bodice wise, over here I have done the lace already. That's the same lace that's down here on the sleeve edges. So I applied that again just with top stitch like I mentioned that I was going to do. I have a really nice match thread. This is too thick for this rat tail. It's too thick for the bodice lacing, but it's what I had. I'd like to replace this with a really fine like 1/8 inch wide ribbon. So next time I go to Joann's, I'll probably pick up like a 99% spool of that. But for now, it looks like this. I had to thread it through not only with a yarn needle, which you can see right here, but I actually had to pull the yarn needle through with the pliers because it was not wanting to get through these eyelets, because again, this is just too thick. So now we are ready to set these sleeves. They will go in like this. I did research this. I don't know if I mentioned that. I serged the edges. I know I told you I was going to, but yeah, these get set in like this. And then once that is set into the arm's eye, then the side seam slash underarm will get sewn together too, right sides together. So I'll show you kind of what that looks like as those next 2 steps progress. So sleeves are attached. This is what it looks like all flat. Now I'm going to do the underarm slash side seam, and then the bodice is basically done, other than the little trim going around the hem and also the closure in the back. So the bodice is now complete other than the closures. I've closed up the side and underarm seams there, and then I also added the trim along the bottom of the waist. I do need to go in right here at the center, both on the bottom and on the top, and do that probably by hand, because I didn't want stitches to show through the little satin area, because that would be way more obvious than like the top stitching right there on the edge. And then also down here with the skirt, I have sewn together the centerpiece of the skirt and the 2 side slash side backs, and I've left about that much of a gap. I think that should be enough at the top so that, you know, it can actually be put on. If I need to lower that down, I can. Now what I'm going to do is, I think the instructions actually say to do trim next, like the lace trim at the bottom, and do that kind of as a hem so that it winds up folding up like that as the hem. And then I hopefully will wind up kind of catching that seam allowance, because I'm going to put more of the velvet ribbon all down the fronts and along the hem. I just thought you guys might appreciate this trim chicken. I literally had exactly enough of the lace trim left to go around the whole hem. So that's all pinned in place, and now I'm going to sew it. Oh my gosh, look how cute the lace looks on this. Now to add the ribbon along the edges, and then just the waistband, and then the skirt will be done, other than closure on the waistband, of course. It looks so pretty. The velvet trim is on. I think it looks really nice. I've also already run gathering stitches around the back of the waist up at the top of the skirt, so that is ready to get set into a waistband. So just as a heads up, this pattern is definitely more made for a PC Pleasant Company size doll than the modern dolls. And of course, I am putting this on 125, a new doll. And I tried the skirt on. The skirt is, well, technically finished, but I tried it on my 125 and it was way big. And I had actually already cut off a 1/2 inch of the waistband too. But yeah, it was way big. So I've got my snaps right here put on the waistband. I'm actually going to have to set another snap next to it, probably right about there where I'm poking right there, for my 125, because that is how much smaller her waist is than the PC girls from the 90s. See, look how big the overlap is on 125. Her waist is tiny. So yeah, I'm going to set another snap right there. So yeah, there she is. I am honestly so happy with how this all turned out. I think it looks just about perfect. Honestly, the only thing that I do still intend to change is to replace this rat tail with some other like really thin ribbon, probably like a 1/8 inch type wide ribbon, because this is just too thick and it keeps untying itself too. I actually wound up pinning it from the inside just for like the pictures and footage there, just so it wouldn't come untied. I also do, in hindsight, wish that I had not increased the length by like that 1/2 inch. I think it is just a tiny bit long on her, which is weird because again, when I looked at it on my number 4, who was the larger waist that I was looking at there, it seemed like it was a better length on her as well. So it could also just be that maybe this is a slightly shorter doll. American Girl dolls really do vary by about an inch. Actually, they're supposed to be 18-inch dolls. And if you've looked at a whole bunch of them lined up, you will know that they are not all the same height at all. And then the accessories I have with her are actually part of the Rapunzel like set that you can get. This was perfect because they sell this with like an easel and art set and stuff online, just all as, I don't know, I think it's like $40 or it's something expensive for the set of accessories. And I didn't really want all that other stuff. I found these on Mercari, and even after shipping, I think it wound up being like, I don't know, around $25 or something like that for the frying pan and Pascal and her little bag. So I thought that that was a perfect accessorizing way to do this. And I love all the flowers that I put in her hair too. I think that looks so pretty. And yeah, I'm just thrilled with how this whole thing looks. I think it's just really quite perfect, and it looks a whole lot like mine, which is really exciting. I do need to do some tweaks on mine to make myself like it again, because it just never really fit right on me. Like, I made the neckline too high in the bodice, and anyway, that's a whole other story. But I'm very, very pleased with this. I love just like all of the detail and everything. I am so excited. Honestly, I had still intended to buy Rapunzel like later this month because I've got a huge reward like coupon. Basically, I would wind up saving $50 on her, and that's pretty big. But now that I've made this, now I'm honestly not positive if I'm going to buy the Rapunzel doll. She's a super pretty doll, so I still might, but I just don't really feel like I need to anymore because I think Chloe is doing a really great job of giving all those Rapunzel vibes in, let's face it, a way better outfit than what you get with the American Girl doll. So yeah, overall, although this took way longer than I had anticipated because I made it like a whole huge complicated thing, I'm super happy with how this turned out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video as well. Next week it will be back to sewing for me, so hopefully you are looking forward to getting back to some like human type sewing as well. But if you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon, and if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and then sometimes additional costuming or sewing related content out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And I do also have a doll Instagram that's at Lady Rebecca Dolls. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean, Kim, and Dan. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!